Hello and welcome to Morgan Latif Presents Coaching You Through Crisis. I'm Sam Latif, co-founder and director of Morgan Latif and your host. And this week my guest is Arun Kohli. Arun brings close to 35 years as a CEO and MD level type positions, particularly for mid-cap businesses. He's worked all over the world, from Asia to Europe to the US. He's truly a global citizen, fluent in 7 languages. And now as a coach, he has a particular focus on C-suite. He's trained over 200 C-level executives in some of the largest organizations in the world. And he has a particular focus in helping leaders navigate complexity and uncertain and ambiguous times. And that is none more so true than it is at this present time. And this is the topic that he decides to speak with us today. So we have a great conversation, and he really weaves in his own experience and how he's able to really help manage diverse and international teams as well through these times, and hopefully he gives some good guidance to leaders dealing with similar challenges in this day and age. So I hope you enjoy the conversation, and let's get into it. Arun, good morning. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you for calling me in. Good to be with you.
Great. Well, look, I appreciate your time. As I said, it's a very interesting time for all of us, should we say. And I've sort of changed a little bit my habits at the beginning of the show, where I asked, how have you been coping? But now I really like to better understand from coaches, from a personal perspective. I know you're a parent. You've been obviously living this situation in Germany, but what's maybe a personal lesson that you've learned about yourself that maybe you'd be taking forward now, just following everything that's happened through this crisis?
Yeah, there is a very strong personal lesson in this crisis. Let's call it a crisis, a disruption. I have 2 kids, both in the university, and my wife is also an entrepreneur. So they were all together, and as a student of psychology, my concern was, how is it going to impact them?
Right.
How can I strengthen them? So my strength is basically how many pillars I have below me, supporting me. And my family is my support system. So we've been locked up for two months, and we created new things. We started doing yoga and cooking more and getting people involved.
I know you also have an extensive experience, both as a leader, and we'll talk a little bit about the topic that you're going to be, talking us through. But I always also like to understand the origin story. I mean, you've been a CEO yourself. You've worked in multiple industries, an extensive track record, again, in industry. But for you, what was it that, again, put you on this path and on coaching and guiding leaders through also these complex challenges?
Leadership roles, are basically coaching roles.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not managing people, you're leading them. And in leading, basically, the most fundamental thing is, are people following you? And if the people are following you, then that can only happen because you take care of their concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back and saw that very long back, 1989, I started training young people. One young girl came up and said, she was 18, and I asked her, what are you doing in a warehouse? Why are you working in this warehouse? She's good looking and tall young lady. And she said, I'd love to learn becoming a business person in international trade, but your company does not offer anything. I said, well, I can change that. I am the managing director here. So I went and learned how to train people and got certified in Düsseldorf in Germany. Ever since, I've trained a lot of people. Even being CEO, I always selected some young people and trained them. So I was sitting in Hong Kong in 2010. I was CEO of Sympatex Technologies. It's a very popular German company who make membranes. And my children said, look, Papa, we've studied in Italy. We've gone to school in Italy. We've gone to school in Germany. Now going to school in China is no go. So I said, all right, my choice is to come back to Germany. So I asked my wife, what do you think I do best?
Mm-hmm.
She says, you learn very quickly. And when you explain something to somebody, they understand it very fast. I said, so what do you think of coaching? She said, that'll be ideal for you. So I started learning coaching. It was a good school. It's the first school that created coaching. And when I finished coaching course, I said, with so little, you cannot possibly help people because it's about human behavior. So I started studying psychology. Mind you, I am not going to be called a psychologist because that is counterproductive to coaching. So that's how I came to coaching.
Wow. Well, yeah, and I know it's been quite a journey ever since. And through that, both with the experience you've had as a CEO and as a coach, I'm sure this is a problem that is very unique. And this is also something that you're going to be talking us today in terms of this uncertainty that we're all facing, how to really be able to lead through that. And again, there's so many different opinions. I think one thing we can all agree on is nobody really knows exactly how this is going to turn out, whether it's going to be a quick rebound or not, but it's obvious that it's going to have a lasting impact. And I think my first question on this subject, which is again really important, is we look to our leaders to give us this sense of reassurance, be that captains of industry or heads of government. So, I mean, as a leader, how do you communicate not knowing or being uncertain, but at the same time giving, be that your employees or the people that are looking to you, reassurances over the future?
That's a very good question because we need to communicate. So let me answer this in two parts. One part is just for the leaders to understand. You said rightly, we do not know, it's uncertain. What is it going to come out? But let's be a little philosophical. Do you know how my life is going to come out? I don't know. I just don't know. So you live one day at a time and do your best what you're doing. And honestly speaking, this is the best sentence I taught my kids. I don't know. Because the moment you say, I know, learning is finished. And leaders are continuously learning. Because people are following them, they're coming with new ideas. So how to communicate something down that really reaches the last person standing there? First of all, you have to keep one thing in your mind, one thing in your mind. It is not what you're saying, it is how you're going to say it. And very important is the word articulation. Whatever is your mental model, whatever you've thought of, whatever goodness or restrictions or constraints you've thought of, you have to articulate them. Like I love to use this sentence in my career. I said, when you give any instructions to your suppliers, to your partners, make sure that the blind can read. It should be so crystal clear that they can read it. And that was the first way I reduced mistakes up to 99.8%, which is excellent, almost sigma 6. So communicating, you have to get your reports together and tell them why you are doing this. When you explain them the why and tell them I'm doing it because I want you to take this step exactly the way I am doing it.
And how do you foster that kind of environment so that you are able to then trust the other leaders that you're reporting into yourself, for example, have that same ability to deal with that ambiguity and that uncertainty? How do you build that kind of culture?
Actually, you've given the answer very clearly. When let's say you have 8 reports, you get them together and you insist, look, the purpose of this communication is to remove ambiguity. We do not want to be sure what we are saying. We want to be sure what the people understand. What is the purpose of me saying I'm hungry and you don't understand what I really want? So tell your reports, I would like you to replicate this one-on-one, prepare it, let's discuss it, and then tell your reports further exactly like this. Please take time to communicate, because this is an exceptional time. Communicating, we've hired a new manager for technology. Okay, people are aware of it, but they're not interested. Now they are interested in what is the company doing for us. So it is very important to remove that ambiguity, and ambiguity is removed by a very simple sentence by saying, please ensure that people understand what we really mean, and let's formulate that, and let's formulate how to transfer it.
But with that, I mean, you said you're sort of entrusting your team to also follow that very well. And as you rightly said, this is a very exceptional circumstances that we're all living in. And when that occurs, maybe people's behavior can change, and people might go the other way, correct? So they might be somebody that turns into, I don't know, a bit of a negative or a bit of a toxic presence in certain leadership teams. Again, not in all, but there may be always some examples of that, or somebody really offering resistance when the path is so unclear. And what do you suggest when that occurs, when there are fractions in the kind of leadership teams, and there are these kind of toxic personalities that arise when there's this uncertainty? How do you suggest dealing with that?
Let me give you a scale on this. There is negativity and there are toxic people. So negativity is normal, because that's a sign of, sometimes, in this case, it'll be a sign of fear. And rest assured, many people coming back to work are coming with fear. And we have to be careful that some people have rarely experienced it, because they may have lost somebody in the family. They may have lost a loved one, maybe grandfather, grandmother, and some may have been affected terribly, and they want to share that. And they're not interested in any superficial messages. Negativity you will always have, because if you had complete positivity, that would be a dead end, that would be inert, nothing will move. So negativity is a good sign, and let them be negative. There's no problem with that. You have to just talk to them. So there are two kind of people. I again give you two examples. There may be more. One, they'll be coming back with fear. The others will try to manipulate the situation, kind of, push it onto your shoulder and say, it's your responsibility, you have to explain it to me. Because there are people like that. That is human.
Yeah.
Certain negativity you can challenge professionally. Let me give you an example. We had a quality controller, a head of quality controller, and we had people like Gautier coming to us, top designers coming to look at our products. And when I joined this company, I saw it was a beautiful big hall, and all the places, all the corners were full of cobwebs.
Okay.
I said, is this quality? So this man who was in charge of quality, he says, if I go up and I fall down, you are going to be responsible. And so these are kind of people who will come to you. So I asked him, I said, were you planning to go up? Were you taking a ladder and cleaning it up? He says, you told me. I said, I want that cleaned. Get a professional and get it done. So this is the time to use your authority when people are nonsensically negative.
Should leaders be more risk averse in overall with the situation, just given what's going on, or should they be taking more risks? What is your opinion on that?
See, the reality we are going to face is there's a total downturn in the economy. We don't know how it's going to pan out. The first results that come out probably in 3 months are going to shake us up further, because just yesterday I read that Renault is already having some trouble, the layoffs and things. So taking risk or not taking risk, we cannot do it in an absolutistic manner. You cannot go to the office and say, I'm not going to take any risk, because risks in business are educated risks. They are not speculative. You're not really gambling.
Mm-hmm.
The people are there. They're not all gone. The markets are there. The only thing that's missing is the will to consume.
Mm-hmm.
So in almost every area, I mean, if you talk to a doctor, a dentist, they've not had people coming to them. I mean, it's a necessity. But even there, people have not gone there because of fear of infection.
Mm-hmm.
So risk-taking has to be maintained the way we did earlier. I'm not talking about gambling, but the educated risk-taking. There are opportunities there because everything was missing. Maybe you can increase your market share.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be winners and losers, right? In
Of
in
course.
any situation like that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think again, it's not a case that people can predict the future, but there's certainly analysis and scenario planning that can be done to sort of
Absolutely.
allow you to make the right decisions. But how do you also, I mean, with everything that's going on, and do you think there's actually a blueprint that somebody can follow when it comes to navigating a crisis like this? I know it's unprecedented in certain respects, but the history can always teach us something, right? And is it of value to look in the past to then help guide these decisions in the future, or should the leader just trust their instinct when it comes to a situation like this and making decisions?
It's true what you said, that there is no precedence, because the last time we had a very dramatic situation was 1945. It ended in 1945.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who were born then and have a vivid memory of that are probably too old and not working anymore. Perhaps many are not even living.
Mm-hmm.
So the phase we've lived since the last 75 years is basically affluence. So it's been going up all the way.
Mm-hmm.
But there are truly some examples, and one of these examples that strike me are Porsche. Porsche was almost bust. 1993, Mr. Wiedeking took over, and the turnover was about 300 million. I still vividly recall an interview in the television when a reporter asked a Porsche salesperson, he says, why should somebody buy a Porsche when he can buy much cheaper a Mazda?
Mm-hmm.
He says, we are a legend. I said, oh, wow, these guys are going to go down, because with platitudes, you've never achieved anything.
Yeah.
But Wiedeking came along and he had a massive challenge. He said, I need to fire people, but I cannot fire people. So what to do? Let them participate. Now, when I think back after learning from Paulo Freire, the Brazilian educator, he let people participate. He called everybody and said, excuse me, my narrative is not precise, but the gist is absolutely in that direction.
Yeah.
And he said, I do not want to fire anybody, because your job is as valuable to you as mine is to me. What do you propose we do? So many people who are above 57 years voluntarily left the company. Mm-hmm. And after he had restructured it, the basis was let people participate. After he restructured it, it reached 24 billion euros turnover from 300 million D-Mark, Deutschmark. This is success.
Wow. Yeah. And I think also just how we think about leadership is gonna essentially change, or certainly be impacted. But in your opinion, I mean, that's an example of how maybe that crisis shaped the kind of the future of Porsche. But in your opinion, what will be the lasting impact on how people lead? Do you think there will be a lasting impact, and what will be the consequences following this crisis?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we never come out of any disruptive event unscattered, or we always take some bruises with us. And this pandemic has put us all in the same boat. And the first impact is fear. And let us not underestimate that. let us not underestimate it as leaders and also as managers. Please be careful that the people who are coming back are coming with a certain fear. So categorizing them into excessive fear or less fear is not going to help. This is the first impact, and how are you going to deal with it? You will have to reframe your, let's say, once a week meeting. Where you say, let's talk about us. Let's put away our handsets, emails. Please come just with your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you drink. Let's talk. People want to be understood. People need to talk because it's a phenomenon that if you talk about something, the effect mitigates. The other part is that when human beings live in a situation, they become accustomed to it. You know, you live in poverty, you think that's normal. You are in affluence and super rich, you think there is no poverty and people are to blame themselves. It's a very strange thing. But let me give you an example. What is empathetic talk? I used to have a manager in, I think, 2009 in Beijing. His name was Brian Chu, and he was a hiker. And one day I learned from my staff in Beijing, he had an accident, broke his leg, and it's in the bed. So I called him up on the phone and said, "How are you doing?" He laughed at it. "This thing happens, doesn't matter." 2 weeks later, his wife died. Hmm. Now, I think people start becoming superstitious when so many things happen in a sequence. So this is bad. So I flew from Hong Kong to Beijing and I told them, "I've come for you." It is important to let people know you're doing it for them. Yeah. Because they're important. And I could have asked, "How are you?" And he said, "Yeah, it's terrible." But I said, having an accident and then losing your wife, it must have been a depressing state. He says, "You're the first person who said what I really felt. I was depressed. And I still keep slipping into it. I haven't done anything. I haven't given him any medication, any cure. It's just the understanding." And his performance was so good after that. He followed me because he thought, this man understands me. I did nothing great. It doesn't take a lot. Just try to understand. You may be thinking, how can I do this? Just try to address the feeling behind the whole situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said the interconnectedness that we've all felt from the situation and has just been heightened, ironically by being away, has been something remarkable to understand. And as you said, if that's going to have a lasting impact on leadership so that we are able to address the fears of the future, the uncertainty, practice more empathy, that's hopefully, a really positive result of it. So
it just strikes me that it may just be an opportunity to reframe your complete strategy. Look back and see, is there something you thought would have been great if we had addressed it and we had people doing this or that and following this pattern? Now is the time, because you have the opportunity to get people together.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the leaders for today, but the ones for tomorrow as well. It's going to be hopefully a valuable lesson. But look, Arun, it's been really interesting. I know with your particular also lens, but being a CEO, the MD, you understand the moving parts and the complexity of this situation, and obviously helping giving some advice on leading through uncertainty will hopefully be of value to those listening. So I appreciate your time and thank you for joining on the show. And best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's been interesting addressing the questions and thinking about them, because each one of us is involved in the daily routine. It was good talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Arun. Take care.